If you're on a tight budget and you want to get an RC crawler, should you consider the Remo 110 scale 10275? It's $140 US, or just about 200 Australian. Is it worth it? I don't know, but I think we should find out. Banggood have sent me this. It's been released now for about a month and it's brand new. It reminds me very much, looking at the box, it reminds me very much of the original RC-TNT with the plastic links. Pretty tidy packaging. These are vented plastic bead locks. They look to be about 4.4 inches, give or take. Beautiful paint job. USB charger, 2 AA batteries for the radio. When you buy a new crawler, there are some basic things that you want, particularly if you don't know what you're doing. You want to know that the battery it comes with is going to be enough. You want to know that you can fix it if it breaks, and these exploded parts diagrams are brilliant. I've spoken about this before, the plastic. I'm actually expecting this to be an RC-TNT, an original RC-TNT clone. I don't know though, it looks a bit shorter. The controller's inside. So these wheels are vented. The rubber's got a firm shape to it, but oh no, there is foam in them. It's just really soft. Honestly, the body's not too bad. Sticker's coming off, but that's okay. Oil-filled shocks rather, but they're very firm. Big body clips that look a bit funny, but they're easier on the hands. That's true. Let's have a look at this thing. Oh, look at that. Okay, so the windows are painted. That's a shame, but yeah, this is very, very similar to the original RC-TNT. Plastics are probably slightly harder than the RC-TNT, which is good because those things were spaghetti-like. Still soft. It's 4-link suspension front and rear, which means your steering is affected when it articulates. You see how it moves a bit? It's the all-in-one receiver, ESC and BEC. BEC powering the servo. You've got light buckets on the front bar and a little LED output for lights, so that's cool. Slippers behind here. You can pop this little plastic thing off to get to the slipper. There we go. There's a bolt in there, and the whole spur gear cover comes off with 3 screws. This really is similar to the RC-TNT, the original, but it's a 390 motor. That's a smaller motor than the 540 that the 10 came with. That's okay though. This looks cheap and cheerful, honestly. It even includes what looks to be a lithium ion, 2 650s and a lithium ion battery. It claims 1500 milliamp hour. Could be. I see bearings in the diff outdrives. I see bushings in the axle. Yep, so they're bushings on the corners, but there are bearings where the pinions are mounted, and these, even the drive shafts, these are honestly reminiscent of the original RC-TNT. Yeah, they're plastic, but they're plenty strong. Springs are too stiff and they're catching. They're a funny design. Anyway, you've got a steel chassis rail set. Feels cheap, but it's not so bad. There's a button here that gives you low and high speed and some trim. 2 AA's, which I brought down with me. This is a cheap feeling radio, but it's comfortable enough. It'll be especially comfortable in smaller hands, so that's a good thing. I'll often recommend buying used instead of new if you're on a tight budget. However, if this thing really is similar in performance to the original RC-TNT, this could be a worthwhile purchase. Okay, now a couple of observations I've made while putting the wheels on. Firstly, it's all nylon ball ends in all the links, which makes sense since they're sitting inside plastic links and we're on a budget. They will wear and eventually you'll get some movement, but that's okay. There's no movement in the pinion on the axle section, which is excellent. That's really good to see. They're unsealed ball bearings, so getting this in water will be okay. In limited amounts, getting it in mud, you'll find your bearings don't last as long. There's a very tight angle on these. You want a more shallow angle coming from this down and in. That's a consequence of your this is again 10 or 15 year old design. your high skid plate, because it's kind of like a clone of the SCX10, the original, you've got quite a steep angle here. So you hear that it kind of goes in bits. That's as your universals articulate. It's good for strength, it's not so good for smoothness. Steering angle's not amazing at all. They're dog bones, not unis in the front. The cups will wear as well, but it's a lightweight vehicle and it's not a particularly high power vehicle. Even if we chuck this on 12 volts for as long as everything lasts, there's not a lot of power going through this system, so that's probably okay. The flexible links I don't mind so much also. Sometimes you get something caught and things will bend before they break, which again on cheap hardware, not a bad thing. The other thing to note is it's all hex hardware. No Phillips screws here, the whole thing's hex. The diffs are removable and, well, they're not really diffs, they're just a gear, but they're removable and serviceable. I think it'll be alright. And you get a heatsink on the motor, which is a very welcome addition. It's not a particularly strong servo, but you wouldn't expect that for a cheap, ready to run. There's a button here. You press that and it gives you half the throttle output. I experimented a little. We're going to leave that on full. Now the steering bar is already stuck on the concrete there. I've also looked at the full throw of the steering. It's at maximum. I'm going to press this in and we're just going to try going a bit slower. Throttle is a function of... no, it actually just cut out then. Yeah, it doesn't, even at full beans, it doesn't have enough to move the wheels. So in this case, it's giving it half throttle, but it's not enough to turn the wheels. So it reaches stall torque and actually stops working. That's weird. There is articulation, as you can see. The springs are too hard, but it's all right. What I don't like seeing is how it's cutting out. It's hitting a stall point and the ESC is stopping. The wheels do have sufficient grip, the tyres I mean, but the steering is poor. It doesn't have a good throw and the servo is weak. But again, cheap truck. This is quite a handful. That's maximum throw there. Not really. Maximum throw is just not enough. Because if that back left falls down, this attempt is over. Well, I mean, it did it. Now from this angle with a bit of sun, you can see all the red splotches of paint on the front of the vehicle there. This vehicle also comes in red. Quite a bit of overspray, I guess. The other thing to notice also is the body posts have the body sitting up too high. Really, they want to be down one notch at the back at least, and possibly at the front as well. This isn't a complaint, I'm just noticing it. There we go. So I'd like to see the front right compress up. Oh, we're cutting out on stall here. We're going to roll. Yeah, not good. So the problem with this thing is the ESC. The drivetrain is not particularly smooth, which has left us with an ESC that's cutting out when you don't want it to. This is a shame too, because it's a promising vehicle, but I can't get it to steer. I'm gonna have to pick it up. That's what I was trying to do, but steering's just not good. So I should show you what I'm doing here. I'm applying throttle here, gently. I'm going to press that button again, slow us down. I want a bit more control. That's full throttle. which is fine. We're at half power. I'm just trying to avoid the ESC cutting out. It's nearly undrivable. Yeah. Oh my goodness. It looks like it'd be a fun yard machine, like just for mucking around. But your steering is just really weak. It is a 3-pin servo though, so you can replace the servo. There we go. The ESC cut out when we hit the line that we needed. Thankfully it turns back on, I don't need to press anything, but there, that's the angle we need. I think problem 2 might be out. While we're here, how hot are we? Oh, the ESC is really hot to touch. Motor's warm. Servo. Yeah, servo's cool. I'll give it one last go, but this steering is, I mean, that's full throw both ways. It's not good. It's so bad that I'm thinking replacing the servo might be part of the cost of getting a decent crawler here. I've stopped the test because this thing is nearly undrivable. The throw provided by the stock steering servo is so poor that it's a 5 or 7 point turn just to get it to change direction a little bit. And although the tires aren't actually too bad, the ESC is cutting out when the wheels can't turn as you add throttle, which means when you're on a technical climb, it just stops. When I compared this to the 136-100 V2, and here's the video for that, although that was also a cheap machine, it didn't cut out. So what this thing needs is, we need to cut the springs or replace them with softer springs. We need to move the body down. We need to replace the servo with a better unit. The ESC also probably needs to be replaced, which means you'd need to put a radio receiver in it too. Now the costs begin to add up. The 136-100 V2, if you're after a cheap new machine, is a brilliant choice. This thing is not good for crawling. It's just cutting out. The ESC is insufficient. And unfortunately, because the radio is paired with the ESC as an all-in-one, you can't just replace the ESC and have it work. I therefore can't recommend this thing yet. Let me change some electronics over. I'll see you next video, and we'll have another go at it, and I'll give you a running tally of the budget, and then we'll compare it to similar vehicles of the same money. Because this thing handles all right, and the wheels are all right, we might still have some hope for this thing yet. And look, for a backyard basher that you can just jump it around and stuff, even on 2S, it's plenty fun. Plenty fun. It's just not a rock crawler yet. Throw me a like if this was a useful introduction to this new Remo Hobby mini truck, and I'll come back to you next time with a few upgrades, and we shall see whether this thing's worth it. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time on RC-TNT.